Hello winemakers, this is Frank from Musta Wine Grape up in Hartford, Connecticut. We just had our third session of boot camp today. We have sessions we run here throughout the year. So we just got done doing some pressing today on some Malbec, which came out very nice. So I thought this would be a good time to talk about some of the products that we use while we make our wine. These are all available up at the store. So I want to give you a little bit of information. You have the choice of taking your grapes home and just basically crushing the stemming, warming them up and let them ferment. When they're done fermenting, boiling, bubbling, whatever you want to call it, they press and there's your wine. Well, we try to put a little bit more into that. And the way that we teach the boot camp here, by the way, is the way that we make wine at wineries too. So when we teach you how to become a home winemaker, we also teach you the proper way and to put the proper additives. Everything you see on this board is not deadly, it's all natural, it's vitamins, minerals, tannins, and so forth. So let me go through this list with you so you can get a feel of what we do when we make our wine. So up on top, one of the first things we use is potassium metabisulfite. Some people call it meta, some people call it sulfite. We use that up front on our must to stun the natural yeast so it doesn't take off and to kill any bacteria that could be on the grapes. We tend to put more when we have any mold on the grapes. Normally I like to shoot for 25 ppm. If I see moldy grapes or unhealthy grapes, I'll go to 50 ppm, no more than that. So you should always have potassium metabisulfite at home. It's good for sanitizing. We add it to our wines once they're done. So we should be good with using this and our must also. The other thing we're going to be putting in just before we pitch our yeast is we like to put oak dust in. And you know, believe it or not, you're not doing this to get the flavor of the oak on here, but what it does is it increases the tannic structure and helps with color retention. So oak powder, we give you the dosage that you need. We normally use medium French oak, and we put so many cups per gallon of must, and we add this in just before the yeast pitch. Now, once we get our grapes home, we also like to use enzymes. So these two we just have a couple of the enzymes that we carry here, but enzymes are more than just breaking down the grapes. A lot of people think, oh, you need to put that in to kind of melt those grapes down and get them really juicy. Well, yes, it does that. And yes, you don't need a lot of it. You'd be surprised if you're making 20 cases of grapes, you'd be surprised that maybe 20 milliliters of an enzyme is going to do the trick for you, but it does. So be careful. Don't overdose this stuff. But what this does, like Color Pro is used for reds. It breaks down the cell walls of red grapes to extract anthocyanins, which are for color, phenols, and tannins. This gentle extraction creates wines that are rounder in mouthfeel and bigger structure and improved color stability. So the reason I read that to you is it's more than just breaking down the grapes. Your enzymes do more than you think they do. And it's also, Color Pro helps with some of the herbaceous notes. So if you're doing any of that Chilean wine where you get that herbaceous green bell pepper, this can help reduce that. When it comes to white wines, we use a different product. We use sin-free. It's used strictly for whites. It increases the pressability, we'll call it, because remember, we press right away. The yield, meaning you're getting more, and just provides a better aroma profile. So message here, enzymes do more than just melt those grapes down. When we get to the yeast section, we sell a lot of Go Firm here. Go Firm is used to rehydrate the yeast. It has a lot of micronutrients in it. It enhances the kinetics and the potential of that yeast to multiply and to become stronger. And I say here that the result of this is a stronger and complete fermentation. So when we prep our yeast, we need a rehydration protocol, and then we need our yeast. So a little lengthy on the yeast here, but let me read a little bit of this. The role of the yeast in winemaking is the most important element that distinguishes the wine from grape juice. In the presence of oxygen, Yeast converts the sugar of the wine grapes into alcohol and carbon dioxide through the process of fermentation. The more sugars in the grapes, the higher the potential alcohol in the wine. And the yeast need to carry this out to dryness. So we have to make sure we select the right yeast. One of the reasons that we use yeast is it's a predictability of the fermentation to make it through all the survival factors without having any complications. So the long story short is I highly recommend to customers to buy a cultured yeast that can do the job and get it done, rehydrated properly using GoFirm. And that will give you the yeast population that when you pitch that into that must, and that must is balanced properly, which we've done in other videos, you're going to get a strong, steady, complete fermentation. And that's one of the most important things you could do as a winemaker. Now, once we start to ferment, the game's not over yet, because this yeast has got quite a battle. It's got to go from 24 bricks, let's say, down to 0. So once fermentation starts, we add in a product here called Fermate-O, which is a Scott product. It's a autolyzed yeast nutrient with a high content of organic nitrogen or amino acids. All right, this does not have DAP in it. That's the big difference. Years ago, there was just Fermate-K. Then they came out with the Fermate-O, and the Fermate-O will go in. Once fermentation starts, we put the Fermate-O in, and then when we're a third of the way through fermentation, so from 24 bricks down to 15, 16 bricks, then we hit it with our second and final nutrient, which is Fermate-K. Fermate-K does have DAP in it, and Fermate-K is kind of like the power bar that's going to help it along the rest of the way. So you need to have your fermentation running cool and steady, and when you see that window where the Fermate-K goes in, you better be there. All right, so keep an eye on it. Watch out, because once you get the K in, you can kind of take a nap, because all you're going to do at this point is punch down. You don't have to watch where the bricks level is. Yes, we still check temperature. Yes, we still check to make sure that we're punching down and getting air into the fermentation. Right? We need to do those punch downs 3 to 4 times a day. So Fermate-K, there's a description on here. It's on our website. But it basically, these are the 2 nutrient hits we give it. The other thing we like to use, if necessary, is DAP, D-A-P, which we sell, which is pure nitrogen, which is one of the key components that yeast needs to survive. So we also add into our wine tannins, all right? And people don't understand that. And actually, these 2 smell the best. When you add these into the wine, they smell so good. They smell like coffee and chocolate, so they're wonderful. And these are natural products that we're using. So it's right here, the FT Rouge, which is used for reds. It's tannin derived from exotic woods and chestnut. So these tannins come from wood. Some tannins come from grape skin, but these are from wood. At the beginning of the fermentation, it helps preserve the grape's natural tannins so they can combine with the anthocyanins to create stable color. And it also helps with mouthfeel. So if you notice here, the purpose of this is to combine with the anthocyanins, because what will happen is the anthocyanins the proteins and the pectins will drop out and take the anthocyanins with them. So what we do when we add this in, you've heard this term before called sacrificial tannins. So rather than losing the tannins that are actually in the grapes, we add more tannins to it, natural tannins, that will be the sacrificial tannins. They'll drop, but leave the natural tannins in the wine from the grape. And that's what we're trying to do to help maintain color and mouthfeel. The same thing happens with FT Blanc. FT Blanc is a tannin. It's made out of a white gallnut tannin, and this is used for white wines. It protects the wine from browning and acts as an antioxidant. All right. It also tells you here that it also contributes to the notes of minerality on the wine. So this FT Blanc tannin will help the wine not just with browning, but it will also help with the aroma and the flavor too. So we recommend that we put tannins into our wine during the fermentation. The last one I want to talk about here is it's called yeast derivative nutrients. Okay, it sounds strange, but we talked about nutrients over here. We talked about yeast over here, but this is the actual term that the vendors will use. Scott, Anardis, Lafort, Gusmer. They call it yeast derivative nutrient. It provides nutrients for yeast growth, helps yeast survival, but it also releases polysaccharides, which is color, and increases volume and mouthfeel. So it does a lot of things for you. And I listed 4 of them here for you. The Opti Red and the Opti White, reds and whites obviously, and then Booster Rouge for the red and Booster Blanc for the white. So if you read up on Opti Red, it's used at the beginning of the wine fermentation to obtain fuller body, more color, stability, and smooth palate wines. So it helps with the entire wine itself. It's not just for the color like the name would apply here. With Opti White, it enhances smoothness and helps avoid browning and protects fresh aromas. So Opti White is what we're going to use for those whites to get those big florals on them. We're trying to get the grapefruits and the lemons and pineapple, so that will help us there. And then you have the option of just using these 2, or one for red, one for white, but you could also put in these also, and that's your choice. We have Booster Rouge and Booster Blanc. Booster Rouge helps with a 4-mouth volume and tannic intensity, as well as aroma. So this kind of plays the role with Opti Red. And then Booster Blanc smooths mid-palate intensity and fresh varietal fruit aromas, while diminishing bitterness, vegetal, and chemical perception. So they all have their reason. So I don't like to call them a nutrient, but that's truly what they are called. The last thing that we like to do to our wine is we like to put malolactic bacteria in our reds. I'm a big advocate of pushing all your reds through mallow to make sure it doesn't happen in the bottle. And also, where do you do mallow on whites? Normally it's on those buttery Chardonnays. We'll do mallow on that. Not many people do mallow on any of the other whites because you want that bright crispness. And what mallow does, we did a really nice recording for you on that. Mallow takes mallow and turns it into lactic bacteria. So there's a malolactic bacteria that turns the mallow into lactic, which goes from a green apple to a buttery type of a milky flavor, which softens the wine up dramatically. So the 3 products that we add to our wine is we have our VP41, which is a real workhorse we sell here. It does a really nice job. If you look any of these up on the website, on the vendor's website, you get all the information, dosages, preparation, how much water to add with it. They do all that for you, and that's why they're there. But the VP41 converts malic acid, and I call it green apple, into lactic acid. It softens the wine, enhances the mouthfeel, and helps with the structure. So a wine that goes through malolactic will soften the acidity and make the wine more softer, more enjoyable. All right, it gives it more complexity. You can see the difference on it. Now the way we add Go Firm to our yeast to rehydrate it, we use ActiMallow to rehydrate our malolactic bacteria. So the ActiMallow is the same thing. It acts just like Go Firm, but it helps with the malolactic. Not a lot of activity here. When we rehydrate yeast, we get a lot of activity in the rehydration bowl. Over here, you take this VP41 out of the freezer, very small amount of it based on the dosage that we recommend, or they recommend, and we mix it with a little bit of ActiMallow to rehydrate it. We throw it into the must or the juice, and off she goes. We highly recommend this on reds. If you decide to, there's 3 methods of doing mallow. There's co-inoculation, there's sequential, and there's post. We have a nice video on mallow topic. If you look at that, we describe that in detail. But if you're going to do a post-inoculation, meaning you're going to add it after the fermentation's done and pressed, then we would go with the OptiMallow. And this is just a nutrient for the VP41. When we add VP41 in during the fermentation, we don't need to add that in. I've actually checked with Scott on that, so we're okay if we use the nutrients that are active in that must at that point. Okay, so we do have packets at the store We label the packets. They come in different sizes. Here's some Tannin FT Rouge. We have some Opti Red. We have larger packets. This is a small one. This is 6 grams, and this guy is good for a small batch of like 1 pail of juice or 6 gallons of wine. This one here is a little bit larger. This one, there's 50 grams in this. So we sell different sizes. We go up to much larger sizes and even bigger than that. So we ship to wineries. For the home winemakers, they come in, we'll give you exactly what you need, because let's face it, as a home winemaker, you want to use exactly what you want and not have any waste. So we give you the packet sizes that you need based on your volume of what you're making. Wineries buy much larger sizes, and they have the ability to store this. So, by the way, if I was going to store any of this, like this Ferment O, if I didn't use it all, I would vacuum seal it, and then I would just keep it in a dry place. When you store your yeast, you store them in the refrigerator, vacuum sealed, keep them cool. When it comes to the mallow, when I buy it up here for my wines, I put it in the freezer, and I try to use it all up, because that's not something you can reseal and put back. So mallow is not something that I would like to save year for year. But a lot of these other products you can save and use for the next season. All right? So hope we helped you out. These are the things we add to our wine. They're all natural. You will find your wine quality will go way up. Your wine will be better. People will notice it. Try it and go make some good wine.